Hi friends, and welcome back to another video of the science of music. Today we will define and understand how music is measured so that you can learn how to define and recognize what an amplitude, frequency, and hertz is on a graph. You know you have it when you can compare sound waves and their new definitions and recognize them on a graph. And for today's materials, you will need the frequency worksheet from Monday's email, some paper, a pen, or a pencil. So let's get started. So we have our awesome warm-up. And our question today is how can we measure things and why do we measure things? So some examples of how we measure things: we use a ruler, we use tape measures, we use scales. And why we measure things could be like, I want to make sure that my new bed could fit through my doorway, or I want to make sure that this picture will fit on this wall. Or we can measure things like to keep track of something. So like when we get on a scale, we can see how much weight we've put on, or we've lost, or we measure like how tall we are to see like some awesome milestones that we hit as we age. So take a minute and pause the video so that we can answer our warm-up question of how do we measure things. Great job. So we can also measure things, measure the way that we hear music. And this has connections with our last set of videos where we learned about how the ear works and how sound waves work. So on our screen, we see three words. We see the word amplitude, we see the word frequency, and we see the word hertz. And on this side of our screen, we see a bunch of different definitions. So we see the speed of the vibration, and this determines the pitch of the sound. It is only useful or meaningful for musical sounds where there are strongly regular waveforms. We see the unit of frequency measured. We see the unit of frequency measurement, and we also see the size of the vibration, and this determines how loud the sound is. We have already seen that larger vibrations make a louder sound. So what we're going to do is I would like you to use your finger or use your piece of paper, and I would like you to draw or write down the definition. Try to guess which words match with which definition. When you unpause the video, we're going to go in depth with each word and their definition. Great job. So on our screen, we see our same three words and we see our same three definitions. And now we see lines that go from the word to the definition. So for the definition of amplitude, we follow our green dotted line and we see the size of the vibration, and this determines how loud the sound is. We have already seen that larger vibrations make a louder sound. We also have the definition of the word frequency, which when we follow our little yellow line, it says the speed of the vibration, and this determines the pitch of the sound. It is only useful or meaningful for musical sounds where there is a strongly regular waveform. And finally, we see the word hertz, and when we follow our pink line, we go all the way up to the unit of frequency measure. Great job. Super duper proud of you guys. I'm sure you got them all right. And so let's keep going. So on our screen, we see two graphs. We see a low amplitude and a high amplitude. Amplitude, there are two main properties to a regular vibration: the amplitude and the frequency, which affect the way it sounds. So we're going to review the definition of amplitude, which is the size of the vibration, and this determines how loud the sound is. We have already seen that larger vibrations make a louder sound. So with this high amplitude, it's a louder sound because we see that our graph is farther away from our line. Whereas with this lower one, we see that it's super close, which means that it's a quieter sound, kind of like how we saw in our last set of videos. But based on this information, how do you think we can control amplitude? So if amplitude has something to do with sound and how loud or quiet something is, how do you think we can control it? Great job. So we can use a volume control, so we can see those on our CD players, our radio volumes, or even our phones. And similar to the graphs again that we saw last week, the farther away that the amplitude is from our line, the louder the sound is. Now on our screen, we see two more graphs, and we see low frequency or high frequency. And again, there are two main properties to a regular vibration. We just went over the amplitude part, so now we're going over the frequency, which affects the way that it sounds. So frequency is the speed of the vibration, and this determines the pitch of the sound. It is only useful or meaningful for musical sounds where there is a strongly regular waveform. So frequency is measured as the number of wave cycles that occur in 1 second. A frequency of, and then this is measured in hertz, which we'll get into in a second. And the frequency of 1 hertz means 1 wave cycle per second. A frequency of 10 hertz means 10 wave cycles per second. So a note A, which is above middle C on our piano, has a frequency of 440 hertz. Which would look more like our high frequency because of how often it is occurring and how steady the sound is. This frequency one would be that it's quieter, like we saw in last week's videos, because it is more spread out. Closer together, the higher the pitch, the farther apart, the lower the pitch. So now if we're looking at this, on these graphs, these are our hertz, and a hertz is the unit of frequency measure. So like I said before, a frequency of 1 hertz means that the 1 wave per second. So this is our standard definition, 1 hertz per second. So it goes up and then down in 1 second. So based off this, it would have a low amplitude, and it would be quieter because of that amplitude, because it's closer to our line. However, if we had a different one and it went all the way up and it went all the way down and it was super, super high, it would mean it was a higher pitch, and that would have a higher amplitude. And then this is more of our expansion on that, saying that a frequency of 10 hertz means 10 wave cycles, which means that the cycles are shorter and more together. So this kind of 1 second, 1 hertz is for lower sounding pitches normally, and for higher sounding pitches, the graph would look more something like this. And we can graph frequency in hertzes. We can graph frequencies like this, and we can graph hertzes like this. So now what we're looking at is combination of everything we've done so far. And we've done a lot, so don't think that you haven't done a lot, because you really have. And in the last set of videos, we became very familiar with the sets of graphs that showed us how to graph sound waves, and now we're going to combine everything. So our new graph looks like this. Originally, we had a quieter, a louder, a lower, and a higher pitch. Now we're adding in the amplitude, which shows the height away from the graph. So this has a low amplitude, whereas this one has a high amplitude. And then for the lower pitch versus the higher pitch, we have a longer frequency with lower pitches and a shorter set with higher pitches. So what we are going to do is we are going to do a homework assignment that goes off of this graph. For homework, I would like you to complete this worksheet, and it was sent out in Monday's email. And basically, so it says frequency, amplitude of sound waves. So basically, there's a set of graphs in each of the 4 boxes, and it asks you a series of questions based off the information that we have covered within this video, as well as some of last week's videos. So if you haven't checked those out, please make sure to check them out. And it's going to ask you who has a higher amplitude, which has the loudest sound. So if you need help, please feel free to email me or peep back to some of our old videos to help you answer these questions. I cannot wait to see your work and to see your answers. You can print this out, or you can just write your answers in a Google Doc and share them with me. Any way that you would like to complete this, you can, and feel free to share it with me. And I hope to see you guys on the next one.